The myth of Srebrenica was crucially important in erasing the stigma connected with the Second World War. Comparing Srebrenica to Auschwitz was for Germany a convenient means of relativizing and thereby trivializing Nazi barbarism and permitting it to resume its expansionist tradition. Germany used the Bosnian War as a pretext for international deployments by the German army under the cover of supposed humanitarian assistance. Ever since, high-ranking diplomats from Germany have been instrumental in determining the fate of Bosnia-Herzegovina and its economic destiny. Former Foreign Minister Joschka Fischer successfully used Srebrenica in his campaign to get the Green Party to abandon its anti-war principles and sanction military intervention, first only under UN auspices, then later as an act of aggression violating German law and international standards. State Secretary Wolfgang Ischinger justified intervention in Kosovo on the grounds that Belgrade was evidently attempting to force a military solution, making the systematic expulsion of the civilian population part and parcel of its military tactics. In view of this humanitarian catastrophe, the international community saw no alternative to trying to prevent further human suffering, oppression and violence against the civilian population by means of targeted airstrikes. Germany took part in the 78-day NATO bombing campaign that claimed to target the Yugoslav army and yet destroyed homes, schools, hospitals, factories, waterworks, power plants, Serb television and the Chinese embassy. It was claimed to be the only action that would prevent the ethnic cleansing of Albanians allegedly underway in Kosovo. NATO Commander General Wesley Clark repeatedly stated that the huge flood of refugees and heightened violence after the bombing began were entirely predictable. He said he knew nothing about any Serbian-planned ethnic cleansing of Albanians, the so-called Operation Horseshoe. The fact is, NATO bombing actually provoked rather than prevented the humanitarian catastrophe. The resulting devastation and dislocation was then used retrospectively to justify the action. Around 850,000 people fled, nearly half the population of Kosovo. According to the OSCE, 46% of Albanians left, but proportionately even more Serbs, 60%, fled Kosovo never to return. And yet the case for NATO intervention had been comprehensively rejected by a German court 2 weeks before bombing began. Munster's Upper Administrative Court, hearing asylum requests in February 1999, found no evidence in government sources to support the existence of a program of ethnic cleansing. Foreign Office status reports, it said, quote, do not allow the conclusion that there is group persecution of ethnic Albanians from Kosovo. The violent actions of military and police since February 1998 were aimed at separatist activities and are no proof of a persecution of the whole Albanian group in Kosovo or in a part of it. The court found that from the end of 1998, both the security situation and the conditions of life of the Albanian population had, quote, noticeably improved, and life in the larger cities had returned to relative normality, unquote. The court's conclusion was categoric. Ethnic Albanians in Kosovo have neither been nor are now exposed to regional or countrywide group persecution in the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. 2 weeks later, on the same day NATO bombing began, Britain's Defence Minister George Robertson told MPs, the Kosovo Liberation Army were responsible for more deaths in Kosovo than the Yugoslav authorities had been. The North Atlantic Council agreed that the KLA were, quote, the main initiators of violence, unquote, in a, quote, deliberate campaign of provocation, unquote. US intelligence warned that the KLA intended to draw NATO into its fight for independence by provoking Serb atrocities. KLA leader Hashim Thaçi told the BBC, we knew full well that any armed action we undertook would trigger a ruthless retaliation against our people. And the tactic finally paid off. After the strongly disputed and most probably staged massacre at Racak, the KLA dream of international intervention became reality.